Hi, Vani. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Bala. How are you?
Good,
Thank you
good.
for having me on your platform.
Yeah. I want to go back to 2014. This was a time when TED Talks were really popular. I mean, they are still popular, but it was quite the thing back in those days. TEDx had just started, I think. And I happened to watch a video of someone called the Ugly Indian. Okay. There was this masked guy. If people have watched the movie V for Vendetta, they kind of know what I'm talking about. So there was this masked guy who was talking about why is India so filthy. That was the topic of the the talk, and I was just curious to see what he's talking about, and he was talking about exactly the same things that probably you and I and maybe the listeners were have been wanting to talk about. Uh, he was talking about just the filth on the streets, and how badly we manage. So that was quite an eye opener to see a group in Bangalore, taking matter in sort of their own hands in a positive way and doing something about it. Um, and eventually over the years I got to know about swmrt and the kind of that you work on, the kind of work that you do. So um, s- so tell me, I want to take you back to your days before being the worm rani. Tell me about what you used to do, and what made you transition into something that you do right now.
Okay. Thank you so much. And yeah, so it is a journey, and I have been very fortunate that at 62, I'm in a space that's given me so much of joy, contentment, satisfaction. I'm most peaceful today. To come to this stage, I have gone through so many different phases of my life that were equally, interesting, at the same time very sober. Yeah, I was born in Bangalore but raised in Hyderabad. I'm the firstborn along with a twin, and it was like, I was always the timid one, never venturing into anything, always shadowed her, kind of, I was her shadow, and we did different things together. We were four daughters altogether, and my parents come from a very middle class family, and my dad allowed us to do anything and everything that even a boy can do, because we were four girls. So taught us swimming, he would teach us how to ride a bike and a scooter and all sorts of things, and gave us the freedom. And also my twin was very interested in cricket, so he never told us this, it's a game that boys play and you shouldn't be playing. And naturally she took to the game, and because I was her twin and we did everything together, went to the same school, same section, went to the same college and everything, I by default also started playing cricket because I had to be with her. To me, life outside my home without her was something that I wouldn't even go out. If she didn't go to the school or college, I would just stay back. I wouldn't go on my own. So it was kind of, I feared the world outside me. I mean, a lot of things got trapped, childhood, traumas and other things. And so it was a very scary place outside. I needed protection. But then, and my sister started playing cricket, and I was there going for the camp in the morning along with her, so that I don't have to take bus separately, things like that. And we both, had good understanding, and we were opening the batting for our college team, and then also played for the university and the state of Andhra Pradesh. Then it was Andhra Pradesh, and it was a great experience being with her. She was the tomboy and who really adventure, did all things, and I was the opposite. But then it was great, journey there. And of course, I got married, came to Bangalore, and in Bangalore, again, my husband was the one who was helping me. Even if I had to go shopping, he would take me out, and it was still the same kind of, I was very happy and content within my home. So a homemaker, two sons, joint family, very comfortable and happy. But when you say you have to go out, and I would sweat it out. So I just couldn't even think of being on my own outside my home or my comfort zone. But then when the boys grew up, maybe I was 45 years then, I was looking at, meeting people who were doing things for the society as such. And I was encouraged to join the Resident Welfare Association. And I think that was my first, independently trying to explore something outside my comfort zone. And I'm so glad I broke that shackle for myself. It was my own constraints that kept me from looking at the world outside. And I think that gave me an opportunity to start looking at what people are doing for the society, for the environment. And I met Dr. Meenakshi, who has been my mentor, and this amazing doctor who was a gynecologist, who was kind of fertility specialist, running her own clinic. And along with her, I did few projects. And one of the projects was to clean up the water rolls, and that gave me such an amazing empowerment that there is something in, because I all along felt that I was not good enough. I didn't have anything in me that I felt was worthy, or something like that. But then it so happened that that voter list correction gave us access to go house to house and enumerate and make sure that we give a list that is actually there, our booth. And the election commissioner was so happy with the work that we did. He applauded us and actually told us that if I had more such citizens, who could be involved in matters of such things, we would do a great job by having a good electoral roll, which is like 100% people who are there. And then when the election happened, throughout the city of Bangalore, the turnout was 45%, because most people's names are not there, or it is missing, or they are dead and gone and still their names are there. So it was something like that. And our booth, the booth that we corrected, hit a 65% turnout. And that was like the most, I think, empowering thing, that we can put our efforts, do a little bit of, take off a little bit of a time, and actually start contributing. So with that came the next thing. And then for the first time, the national news carried this feature, we doing this work on my dining table in my room, and how the office of the is in her house, which they are enumerating, they're putting down, making the Excel sheets. I never had an email account, I never knew how to do anything online. And it was a great exposure. And I'm so glad she happened to me, Dr. Meenakshi. And the next step was, let's do some, we'll make sure that people start segregating their waste. There is a project called WOW. She said, wealth out of waste. Would you join me? I said, of course. So we started, helping out neighborhood to start segregating their waste, gave them 2 bags to collect dry waste and wet waste. And I think that's where I dived deep into understanding what waste was. And I think with that, we got a lot of other champions, mostly women, all over Bangalore in different, areas doing this work. But we came together and formed the Solid Waste Management Roundtable. I went to Vellore with some of my teammates and saw the models there. And then we visited a landfill in 2010. And I think that sealed the deal for me to dive deep into trash. And, I still tell people that we still haven't surfaced. We are still stuck in the deep dive. So I think the landfill gave us a lot of understanding of what happens to the waste that we generate when it is gone and dumped in a mixed form. It's not a scientific place. It creates environment pollution. Your air, water, and the soil that grows your food gets contaminated, and the villages around this landfill, and it is mess. So I swore at the landfill that I will not send my waste there. And if I couldn't send my waste there to add to that huge mess, all I needed to do is understand how I can reduce my waste, which can't be recycled, and then send my recyclable waste start composting. So it has been a fantastic journey. And I think I evolved to be a stronger person, to be a better person, to a caring person, a nurturing person. So I think it gave me access to discover my true self. I would say that.
Yeah, wow. I mean, what all are we unearthing today? You played cricket. I mean, I would have had no idea. Um,
Yeah.
you know, taking you back to those days, you were this outgoing, you did mention that you were the timid one among the two, but then you were this outgoing person, played cricket for college, and post marriage, I think it was the situation for most women back in those times, that you became a homemaker. Uh, was that a very drastic shift, something that you had very much difficulty getting used to, that outgoing person to completely at home homemaker?
No, actually, I wasn't outgoing. I was by default I was outgoing because my sister was outgoing, and I, being her twin and couldn't face the world outside, I had to stick to her. So if you give me the chance, I would rather stay at home and help my mom out and do everything. I was totally domesticated, and so for me, the shift to come into my in-laws' place was very organic. I enjoyed, that that joint family. There was so much, I had a baby very early in my marriage, and it was something that I was very comfortable with. And so there was absolutely no drastic shift. In fact, we had a larger family, and it was much more nice to learn about other people, and interact, and be cozy and comfortable with my mother-in-law, who used to be very pampering with me. So yeah, I didn't find it very difficult at
Oh,
all.
just like fish to water. That
Yeah.
makes me curious. What about your twin? Did she have a similar life as
Well,
you did?
probably for her it could have been a little more adjustments, because though we were raised to be this way, my father having four daughters, his wife and his mother, there were six women at home. And my dad had a lot of principles and kind of very value system. Though he gave us a lot of freedom, but gave us a very important lesson of you know uh, how to build relationships, whether it is your husband or in-laws or everything. So he always said the woman is the center of the home, and everything revolves around them. You make all the adjustments in the beginning, and then it's like everything will fall in place and you'll be the happiest. So I think uh, there was no friction as such when it comes to adjustment. Of course there will be challenges, and then he made sure that we had the basic education, not just having a formal education, but also he would tell us stories about families and what happened, what went wrong, and all that grounded us. I think that grounding gave us a lot of courage to be the person that could be the strength of the family.
Hmm. I don't know if people have told you this before, but you sound, not from a voice perspective, but the kind of things that you say is a lot similar to Sudha Murthy.
I see. I mean, that's an honor to think I'm anywhere close to her. She's an
Yeah.
amazing lady. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard you talk a lot about your visit to landfill in some of the content that I watched of yours. Walk me through that process of what made you visit that landfill, and what was the reason behind the visit?
So as I told that we had formed a team in 2009. A few of us, because when we went to Vellore, we had invited Vellore Srinivasan, who is the man behind a zero waste concept. He says there's nothing called waste. Everything is a resource, and that can be converted into something that can be reused and recycled. So we had invited him to come and give a talk, and when he gave a talk, there was an invitation that went to a lot of people around Bangalore to come for that particular talk. And that's where we met the core team of what SWMRT is today, the founding members. We met, We didn't know each other, but that brought us together. I think destiny plays a huge part in everything. Universe is all the time aligning, to bring forces together. And I must say, SW Marty is a force that's created a very clear understanding of what our basic what our basic mission is. We visited the landfill in 2010. We thought we have to meet every week so that we start planning on how, if we could make the shift, why not we get more people to be sensitized. So for us it was very important that we understand what a landfill is and what really happens. So I think 10 of us, 10 or 12 of us, we went to the landfill, and it was kind of mountains of garbage. Even before we approached, we could see in the, it looked like some kind of hill range. And I think less than a kilometer we could get that stench. It was terrible. When we went there, we had to wear masks because it was a stinking mess. And we actually crossed villages when we entered the landfill. So it is a dumping yard. Landfill is supposed to be scientific and everything is taken care scientifically, but there was nothing scientific about this landfill. It was one of the biggest in the outskirts of Bangalore, called Mavalipura. And we could see a stream of black fluid that was flowing out, and we learned that's called leachate. It was stinking, and it was a thick dark fluid. It was running off and entering a kind of pond. And this was a leachate, and we learned that this leachate is nothing but breakdown of organic matter when it's trapped in the landfill. So when the landfill receives lorry loads of garbage from the city, it's all mixed. There is organic matter, that is from your kitchen, your garden waste, and other biodegradable stuff. And there is your plastic, paper, all kinds of stuff, sanitary waste. Everything is in mixed form. They get dumped, they get compacted, make space for the next day, and again it gets dumped. So it is just building up like a mountain. And when organic matter gets trapped in these landfills, they start to break down anaerobically without oxygen because they are compacted. And that releases something called the methane, which is a deadly greenhouse gas. We talk about the climate change, and all the disasters that are happening. So it is contributing to that climate change and the, heating up of the earth. So that's like 20 to 25 times worse than carbon dioxide. You have methane coming out. You have this dark leachate, that is the fluid that's entering into the soil, because there's nothing that's holding that leachate. It is in a pond which is seeping into the groundwater and into the soil around. And these villages are actually growing our food. Usually most of the food is grown in the outskirts, all the plots outside the villages are growing food and sending it to the city. And your food is grown there, your groundwater is getting contaminated, and the methane getting out into the air. It was this stark reality that gave us the the strength to take this on. And we said no to landfills. Was our first hashtag. We said, how do we get people to say, I will not mix my waste and I will not send it out in the because people think that waste is something that the municipality should take care, because I pay cess, I pay tax, and it is their responsibility. But then we had to turn it around and say it is the generator's responsibility. I generate the waste, and I have to take full responsibility of the waste that I generate. So my waste is my responsibility. So how am I going to manage my waste? Because it is only 1 kg maybe per day, but when you dump it onto the city, the municipal corporation has to handle around 5,000 tons per day. How difficult it will be to segregate it and actually try to get some resources out for recycling cannot happen. Impossible. And also about the people who work in waste. We are not giving any dignity by mixing up. In the landfill, you'll also see these rat pickers all over without chappals and without gloves, trying to pick something that is of worth that they can sell and make their livelihood. So you are creating a section of society that has zero dignity, and they work in that filth. There are children running around. They are prone to diseases. If they cut their hand with a glass, that's a broken glass in that landfill, they won't. It will be septic, and they will not be able to even work. So it is the livelihood. So I think all those things were the factors that we at SWMRT were very, we were putting our thought into it, and it was an amazing group of citizens that came. We became practitioners before we even talked about campaigns and put it out there. So that's the idea you get when you see a landfill. It is a mess, environmental mess, and mess for people who work in it too.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of a recent incident in Cochin. I'm from Kerala, and this was all over the news. There is a huge landfill in this place suburb called Brahmapuram, and something triggered a fire, and the entire city was engulfed in this nasty, smell for days, and it took the officials a while to actually dose it off. Um, yeah, and it was quite an embarrassment. So, so you talk about the landfill that you visited, and you spoke about leachate. Um, so, do you think segregation of waste is probably a very important step in this process, and it has to start from the houses or from the homes? Um, Once you segregate it, does the job get much easier for the corporation or the authorities to do this much better?
So segregation definitely is the most important thing when it comes to managing waste, because there are different kinds of waste that we generate, and at the source of generation is where the segregation has to happen. In Bangalore, we have a three-way segregation. We have the we had a campaign called two bin one bag. That is, we went to court with a PIL to mandate segregation. So the court mandated segregation in Bangalore. And this was like a three-way, that is two bin, one bag. The bag is for all the dry waste, which should be kept clean because you're going to hold it back for a week. It is like there is no everyday pickup for such things. So either we, collect it and take it to a center and drop it off, or we give it into a separate collection, which which is not there everywhere. So another big thing is that it does not align with the system. Like the citizen wants to segregate the waste, and he gives a segregated waste. In many areas, it could be picked up and mixed and put it into the truck, right? So that's there. So the two bin one bag helped uh, large apartment complexes to make sure that every household segregates. They pick it up into their common bins in that segregated form, and make sure they have vendors who will come and pick it up. So there are service providers who will come and pick it up. In such places, nothing goes to the landfill. Kind of, it is managed by, you pay an amount for the service that a lot of people like Sahas and Hasirudala do, where they come in and they pick up your segregated waste. They set up composting systems, train your housekeeping. So they do a lot of service. So it's at a cost. So the apartment association has to set aside that cost, have these composting structures and other stuff to encourage, because even the court had mandated that any apartment that generates more than 100 kgs of wet waste has to have in-house composting systems, right? So that was the mandate. And but unfortunately, the there has been how much of there is a lack of that alignment, where the citizen is segregating, but there is no pickup in certain places. Though we've been pushing for separate days, separate pickups. There is the sanitary waste, which is the second bin. That is, one bin is the green bin, which is having all your organic waste, and then the sanitary waste bin is where the hazardous waste goes: broken glass, sanitary waste, and back all kinds of toxic things that come from your household. So paints and leftover some rat poison or whatever that you've been using. they go into the hazardous waste. There's a red bin. So the green bin, the red bin, and a bag where all the recyclables are. So if there is a separate collection, it's great. All of it gets recycled, because most of the we encourage people, even before segregating, you start understanding what are the categories of waste. There is recyclable waste, which is a good resource which can go back to the industry, because we have a very vibrant recycling industry. But if it is not kept clean, like there is a milk packet, you cut the milk packet, try not to snip it off, leave that little plastic within it, pour it, put some water, remove that, and dry it, and then put it in your bin. Then it can be recycled. But if it is stinky, and if there is some material, organic material in it, it won't get recycled. So we need to also make sure that all our recyclables are clean. So there is a recyclable waste which can go back to the recycling industry, the circular economy. And there is also non-recyclable waste which we should try to minimize. So refuse becomes the top of the practice. I refuse to accept anything that is non-recyclable. So, and then the second one is reduce as far as possible, because every item or every stuff that we get has some resources that have been used to make that product. And that product is, it comes to you, you use it for a very short while and you discard. That's something that we have to refuse. So that's on the top order, that you refuse anything that is single use or used for very little time. So then you have reduced trash to that amount, that because you are not accepting. There's nothing called zero waste with humans. Okay. we constantly are generating stuff that somewhere ends up in the environment, polluting the environment. So it is up to us to reduce that. Then comes the other three principles: reduce, reuse, and recycle. So refuse comes way above that. So we practice that. So with this kind of system, there is a large population of citizens that are very much wanting to be that. But there will be a lot of them who will complain about no pickup. Even if I segregate, there's nobody that will, they mix it up and all that. But ultimately, the onus is on you. You are the generator, and it is completely up to you. If you have generated something that has ended up in water, or it's got burnt, it has ended up in the ocean, sea, in the landfill, wherever, and it is hurting life on this planet. We are not the only creatures that live on this planet. There are million species that live in harmony with nature. They are all zero waste. They don't generate anything that the earth can't digest. We are the only ones who keep generating and polluting our environment. So it's up to us to understand the seriousness of the climate change. How are we going to, stop depleting resources? Not just the resources, but the resources are used and discarded, which pollutes. So there is two aspects to this whole thing. One is resource depletion, the other is the pollution. If these two things are understood, I think all of us become very sensitive about what we should be doing, how we should be, how likely we should walk on this planet. We have become such a huge burden on this beautiful ecosystem, because this is the only ecosystem that is there, that supports life. There is still we can't find anywhere life on any other space other than this beautiful earth. So why are we destroying the future? We have future generations that are going to live on this planet. But just imagine, if we don't reverse the climate change, it's going to be a disaster. I mean, what kind of life? You'll have extinction of so many species. Even humans, I think, will be in jeopardy all the time. You see unseasonal rains, there is food shortage, crops are destroyed, there is floods, there is fire. You name it, everything is there, looming large, and still we haven't made changes to, or accepted that we are responsible. I think the whole SWMRT's endeavor is to get people to take that responsibility. So I have been relentless when it comes to putting out stuff, talking about things that are important, not as a judgment to what other person is doing, but excitement of, this is my practice, and how can I, put it out there and excite someone, make someone enthusiastic about it. That's been my mission in life.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very important point. The number one thing is to refuse. And I think that with increasing consumerism, we don't refuse as much as we should. And I was just reading an article and looking at a statistics on how much waste we have started to generate from, let's say, the 1950s to now, and it has to do a lot with consumerism. Supermarkets are having, single
Packaging.
wrapped, yeah, the packaging. And I mean, I kind of understand that it's necessary. We don't have a very farm to plate kind of a scenario. We get apples all through the year, and at some point in time they have to have some sort of a preservation mechanism and packaging so that they come very fresh, or at least they look fresh in the stores. Thinking back from your growing up years, what are some of the areas that has seen very much, a stark increase in consumerism? And we have always eaten food. I don't think the food system or the food culture has changed much. um, but is it electronics or just single use plastics that you see the most being used from, let's say, the 1970s to now?
Well, I think in every area you see a complete change. When we grew up, I mean, we never had plastic carry bags. It was always, you carry your cloth bag. I remember my parents. He had a scooter. Once a week they would go to the market, and they had these huge bags that they would, tie it in between. It would hang on the sides. My father in the front and my mother the back, and they would buy everything. There was nothing. They would actually go to the kirana stores, and they had the newspaper that they would make it a cone, and and pack your things with that uh, jute, you know, uh,
Yeah.
jute thread
In,
that they would
in
tie.
Tamil Nadu, there is this thing called manjapai, which is like
Yeah,
a yellow colored bag that people used to
right.
use to get. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we didn't have everything. There was no wastage as such. I mean, growing up in a middle class family, the food is cooked enough, just enough for the family to finish. Even if one was unwell, the others had to put it into their plates and finish off whatever is there. There was no carryover. We didn't have refrigerators. I think more and more convenience has led us to, uh, you know, how do I put it? Led us to become wasteful. It's very convenient to buy things and store it in fridge and forget about it, and then it's date is over, and so the thing is, things are not fresh, and I don't think there was so much of chemical fertilizers being used when I was growing up, especially the initial days. So you go to the market, you have small ladies sitting on the footpath with few vegetables. The vegetables wouldn't look very pleasing to the eye. The brinjal would be in different shapes. One would be curled, one would be straight. I mean, that's how it was. It was nature that provided us this, and I'm sure these are small marginal farmers who were growing and trying to sell. So it was farm to the market. The lady was selling it, and we would pick up, and there would be seasonal food that we would eat. There was nothing unseasonal those days. It was like when the tomato season tomatoes, mango season mango, custard apple season custard apple. So we didn't have a variety of fruits and vegetables, but it was very seasonal. And I think we were very healthy because we ate seasonal food, local food, and pretty much organic food. It was natural farming those days. So I think the whole thing has shifted. How we buy stuff today with fast fashion. I mean, I remember we used to get clothes only twice a year, one on our birthday and one on Diwali. And it was always hand me downs. Like my cousins, elder cousins, who had it would become small, and we would take it. We'd be so happy to use their clothes, and everything was used till it's done. Like even if your shoe is like tearing up, you go to the mochiwala, get it repaired. There's a stark change today. It's like use and throw, use and throw, use and throw. New fashion comes, people want to buy. You have hordes and hordes of clothes and shoes. Everything is in excess. You may not never use it, but you have them. So I think, as you put, consumerism has consumed our sane thinking only.
Yeah.
We are just going all out and depleting so much of resource, and fast fashion is one of the biggest polluters, and they are contributing to the climate change in a huge way, polluting our rivers and soil and everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a stark difference when you see. So repair was very very much there. Now you can't. You buy an electronic gadget, it's use and throw. You cannot go and get it repaired. Our radios used to be repaired. All our, even transistors used to get repaired. So yeah, it's a huge difference.
Yeah, I think there is this movement in the US, and it's called right to fix. So you see these consumer products like iPhones and you name it, like smartphones. They're constructed in a way that you can't repair it, or you have to send it to the manufacturer to get it repaired. And I think the European Union is pretty strict about it, that people who buy the product should have the right to repair. And I'm not entirely sure how the companies are going to react to it. But I was actually talking to Nandita Iyer. She's author of multiple
Yeah.
cookbooks, and she was reminiscing her days in Mumbai in one of my episodes, and she was telling me how people used to just, local farmers and local shopkeepers used to just come to their society and sell vegetables. And it's actually funny, like we have completely kicked them out. I mean, they are there in maybe tier 2, tier 3 cities, but as consumerism is moving too much into supermarkets, so from them we go to supermarkets, and then we go to farmers markets. Like, but the reality is that farmers markets were already there in India.
Exactly.
The buy local. It
The
was
mandi
just,
was a farmer's market. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So there is no need to name it as farmers market and go, one level up in that aspect. Uh, Now coming back to home waste, right? I see your videos and you talk elaborately about composting. Now, I was looking up, how composting is done, how aerobic composting is done, anaerobic composting is done, and what I realize is that most people do not want to spend time on composting. It needs a bucket, and you have to drill holes in them, and there's so much hassle. You have to mix it every once in a while, and there are so many restrictions, like you can't put meat, you can't put dairy, you can't put eggs, and so on. So my question to you is, in this so-called fast-paced life, how can you incentivize someone to compost?
Well, if we see the process of composting and the benefits of composting should be the one that should give them the excitement of wanting to do it, because 60% of what we generate, especially in Indian households, 60% of what we generate comes from our kitchen. It's our peels today, with so much of diet conscious, lot of salads. You peel so many vegetables, and you're eating a lot of food. So there's so much of waste that comes out of our kitchen. That's almost 60% of the total waste that we generate every day. And if this 60% gets out, and if it is not going for any facility that either does biomethanization or composting, then it is going to end up somewhere. And all of us know by now that methane gets out when this organic matter gets trapped in the landfill. So you are not just losing out good resource, because ultimately the organic waste that we generate, it does not belong to the landfill or somewhere. It belongs to the soil. It has to go back to building soil. So we are looking at how we can close the system, because the earth is deprived so much, the soil is deprived so much of organic matter with the usage of artificial fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, and all that. There is no organic matter. If there is no organic matter in the soil, there's no life, because that organic matter feeds the life in soil. When you say, when you say farmers land, those days they would say earthworm. Earthworm was the farmer's best friend. That's what we studied when we were growing up in schools. But today you will not find earthworms because it's completely devoid of any organic matter which will sustain life under the soil. In fact, more than above the soil, there's more life under the soil. It is about the microorganisms, the bugs, the fungi, and everything which is, it's supposed to have the ecosystem under the soil, but it's completely desertification is happening because excessive use of fertilizers. And this excessive use of fertilizers is creating so much problems. First of all, there's toxic, in your food. There are chemical toxins in your food. The it gets into these fertilizers get through rainwater, it goes into the soil, into the groundwater, so even your water gets contaminated. And it's sad to see that there is this component missing in the soil which encourages life in soil. So for us to say that this is the fields, if they leave your home it will end up polluting, but if you hold back, you can be a part of the process of building the soil. When people say save soil, it's not about just talking about it. It is about encouraging farmers who still believe in natural processes of growing food, traditional methods of growing food, where it was marginal farmers who had this cows and the cow urine and the cow dung, which were a big part of the natural farming methods. So, and the organic matter, anything that comes off their field would go back to making compost and mulching and other things. So it is about encouraging that, so that you can buy food from these farmers which is good for you. It is organic, it is nutrient dense, because if there is no organic matter, these microorganisms are the ones that generate these nutrients in the soil for the plants to absorb readily. So when they are missing, the plants are not nutrient dense. There are so many statistics. I don't know how far it is true. Before, if you eat one apple, you would get the amount of nutrition that you need. But today, you have to eat multiple times the apples to get the same amount of nutrients. So you can easily see. I don't know how far they are true, but I'm just not giving you statistics. But I'm saying the kind of nutrient dense food that is available when this organic matter goes back into soil is unbelievable. So for people to be sensitized about this, you're taking, it doesn't really take a long time. It is, time is not a constraint. Your space is not a constraint. I have right in front of me, there is the composting system. There is one on this. I'm sitting in my drawing room. This is my balcony in front of me, which is like two areas. I have vermicompost in one where there are earthworms doing an amazing job eating up all my food. There's another tower composter, which is like stackable. One corner, I have plants. So you can, space is not a problem. Open up space here, you can bring in anything that is good for your planet. It's good for the ecosystem. So people say, I don't know what to do with the compost if I make compost. But then you can go and gift it to people who are growing food. You can go and put it into the plants in your neighborhood, in the park. You can add the compost. So composting becomes an amazing activity where you are feeling that you're contributing every day to a better planet, because you're not sending that amazing resource that should have gone back to building soil. So it is, I keep saying very often that this is the tax I pay. When I compost every day, this is the rent I pay to stay on this planet. So you can never catch me not composting. I would say, even if I'm old and bedridden, I make sure that my kitchen waste doesn't go out and it gets composted. So then growing food has become an amazing offshoot of that. I always grew up thinking there's something called the green thumb, but unfortunately there's nothing called the green thumb. You just, how you connect to nature. So for me, this activity gave me an access to understand nature, gave me an access to bring nature into my home. My terrace is vibrant with plants. There are birds that come and nest there. There are squirrels, there are monkeys that come, there are butterflies and bees. So you have provided an ample environment for nature to flourish. And and all of us have access to that when we start saying, because composting led me to that, and better choices about the food I eat. Where do I pick? I haven't been to a supermarket for 7 years now. I'm a part of a CSA, community supported agriculture, where I get a weekly basket that is all my fruits, vegetables, my groceries, everything comes from there. So you can see the transition of just composting, the act of holding back that amazing resource gave you an access to have. When I opened, I told you, at 62 I'm the happiest today. That's because I created that for myself. The universe played such a beautiful part in this, that got me close to people who really cared for this planet. My team in Malaysia, where I stay, we all constantly evolve ourselves, raise the bar, so the other person catches up with it. So it's been a fantastic journey. So for me, just the act of composting will open up so much for you. You can introduce to your young children what growing food is. Even in a small balcony, you can grow some greens, and a tomato, a chili plant. It is not like you can grow all your food. I can't grow all my food, but at least I start making choices on what kind of food I want to eat. I want to eat food that is dense with nutrients, which is because of, one second, it is because there is organic matter in that soil. Yeah. So yeah, it is very important to be sensitized on why you should compost, because you talk about the landfill, about the depleting soil, and then get people to be committing to this. It can be a challenge for many people. It could be it could be stinking, it could be bugs and bees. So it is all about learning. It's about learning the process of composting. It is a kind of it's an activity that teaches you as you try. It is an experiential learning. But once you get a hang of it, it's for life, because sustainability is something that we pick up a practice and then run it through our life. It's not about being a part of one trendy thing that's happening around and be a part of it. It's not that. When you say I have chosen to be on a sustainable path, I'm not zero waste because I took up one practice. It is moving to a low waste living, to a conscious living, to a contributing, a person, making sure that your environment is the most important thing that runs our lives, and how do I nurture it and how do I protect it? So you become eco warriors who are not going on a war, but you are protecting. You're a warrior who protects as much as you can, in your own capacity. So that's the whole offshoot of composting. And if people understood that, there are thousands of people who have taken up composting, because there is a constant, we don't stop. I when I say there is a session, I've done so many sessions. One session on composting, I'm as excited as I was maybe 10 years back. 15 years I've been doing this stuff, but I'll be equally excited because I know out of the 100 people who are on that Zoom meeting, if 10 people take it up, that's made my day. So it is slow and steady. We need to shift. We need to shift the mindset. We need to shift lifestyles, and that's like all my life I would be doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've dedicated my life to that.
Yeah, it's incredible how passionately you talk about this, and I feel like it has in a way become a part of your system, and that's pretty much what you want to convey to others as well, right? I mean, make it part of your life. This whole sustainability, zero waste living, it should be as obvious as brushing your teeth, taking a shower. Composting should be a part of life. Um, However, I just wanna, before we end this podcast, I just wanna ask a question, and I wanna put myself in the shoes of an average Bangalorean. Someone who is living in an urban space, living in an apartment with a balcony, maybe without a balcony, who cannot have a garden on their own. However, they are ready to do this activity. They are ready to compost their vegetable or fruit waste and so on. Is there a mechanism to collect the compost that they have made so that it is beneficial for someone who is doing large scale farming? Because they're ready to compost, but then they don't know what to do with it. So would love to know your thoughts about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the part of the journey too, because ultimately I don't have space. Then you are in a huge apartment complex. Few people get together and start looking at what you can do at a apartment level. So there are many apartments, 1,000 dwellings, 500 dwellings, who are doing community composting, and they can use it for the landscape, but they will always have an excess. So in SWMRT, we've had many campaigns that we have rolled out. The first being the 2-bin-1 bag about segregation. The second being Swachhagraha. It is about composting, because once you have segregated your waste, you have this green bin. And how do you compost? So compost leading to growing something, and then you're eating something that is safe. So it's creating 3 green spots in your home. That was the second campaign. And then we had multiple other campaigns. And another campaign that came up is returning your city waste, city compost. It's called the Compost Connect to farmers. So an apartment dwelling must be having 1 ton of compost ready. So the farmer is there is a group, and they know that this is available. So they bring their tractor, and at a very minimal price, it's sold to a farmer. So he takes back organic matter back to his field, so that he can reduce the amount of fertilizer he's using, which is chemical fertilizer. So Compost Connect is another program by SWMRT. We have another thing called the Swachhagraha Kalika Kendra, which is a learning center that is in HSR layout. Citizens run this place. It's a training center, learning center. There are hundreds of volunteers, CSR activities, who come to learn about different methods of. We have different composting systems there, right from home composters to apartment composters, street composting. All models are displayed there, where 600 kgs of waste every day comes into that area, into that park, where it is all composted or fed into different composting systems. So there is a live demonstration of these composting systems. And this is also there, where you have the compost that's coming out. There's a garden, that's community garden, that's growing. So encouraging people to have community garden. So you're putting your, in a week, at least 2 hours into an activity that is, enriching your soil. You're composting, you're growing, and then they harvest, and they divide the harvest between them. So it is an amazing center. So we have been looking at such Kalika Kendras, that is learning centers all over. It should be there in every ward, so that people go there and learn. School children, busloads of school children come to learn. They see the earthworms, and they see maggots, and they are all part of the ecosystem. You can't have a composter and say, I don't want bugs in it. I mean, they are doing the job to convert it. If you say, you go to a forest and you say, oh, it's so beautiful, it smells so nice, this forest, I love to live here for a week in a nice resort, but then you don't want a spider, you don't want an ant. I mean, that's a part of the ecosystem. You need to be embracing them. That's what nature is.
You can't look at a forest from an air-conditioned room, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you need to be a part of the forest to enjoy, the treks and, all kinds of adventures that you have. Yeah, I mean, that needs to be a part of it.
Yes. I think you beautifully put it, providing the compost that, that was in an apartment to the farmer actually sort of completes the cycle, right? The farmer will use less fertilizer, and eventually, if these apartment dwellers choose to buy from the farmer, exactly, then they get organic product. It's a win-win situation. It's a no-brainer. And it's remarkable, the kind of work that you have been doing, your team that you have put up. And it's fantastic to see, citizens really join hands and make your mission a reality. And I really hope that SWMRT also spreads to other cities. You spoke about Vellore, and I really hope it comes out of Bangalore, and I wish you all the very best for everything that you do. Love your content on Instagram, and I don't think you're on Twitter, are you?
No, I'm not active on
that. Okay, I think you should be on there too, because I feel like Twitter is a space where a lot. I mean, Instagram is a space for a certain kind of audience, but I feel like Twitter is a space for.
I tried it for a few days, but I can't do too many social medias. Even Facebook, I have phased out of Facebook, because I started at 2007 in Facebook. Many people think, I have someone who manages making reels, and no, zero. I do my own editing. See, that's the entire thing, is that there is a scope to learn.
Looks like you're loving every process.
Yeah, because long time back, I had asked my son, my eldest son, when I joined Facebook, I asked him how to do. He said, he gave me a life lesson. He said, figure it out yourself. And that's what I keep doing. Even today, if I need to learn, I don't ask anybody questions. There is the internet. You have your phone at one finger. You can check anything. You need to learn anything that is available. So when people ask such questions when we post something, there are people who ask a lot of questions. Even though we would have captioned it, they will not have the thing to go and look into the caption, and they will ask you questions. I will always wonder why they don't figure it out themselves. You're given so much information and still they want to be spoon fed. So my son gave me a great life lesson long back in 2007, and I'm very happy that I am able to use that formula.
That's amazing. Wow. I think this was quite an eye-opening 1 hour of conversation. But thank you so much, Vani, for agreeing to be on the podcast. And it was an honor and a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Bala. Thank you so much. It's always nice to talk to people, and with you, help spread the word, that people, citizens take more responsibility on the environment.